I'm Jon Tobias, Professor of Rheumatology at the University of Bristol. In terms of why or how children get to have sort of low amount of fat, one can have lower weight in two kind of different ways. One is just kind of dieting, and there is certainly a fad sometimes for sort of excess dieting to try and achieve kind of the kind of figure that one sees in magazines and things. And so when you kind of get to a low fat mass just through dieting, the concern is that might be harmful for a number of different aspects of health. But on the other hand, I mean, obviously we're in the middle of an obesity epidemic, so I'm not saying that everybody should be eating lots, but it's just as a balance between kind of being sensible with your food and actually just overdoing it to become really underweight. The other way of reducing weight is also to do more exercise, and so I think you could potentially speculate that getting to a low fat mass through dieting is actually worse for your bone than getting there through increasing exercise, because there are clearly benefits of increasing exercise, not just for general health but also for bones, because as you exercise, as you kind of put, jump up and down, for example, that kind of exposure of bones to what we call strain is actually very helpful in terms of building up bone. And so you can go on from that to say, well, what kind of exercise? So if you're going to try and exercise and you're going to sort of reduce weight, but what's the kind of safest, best exercise for bone? There is a lot of encouragement to get children to not be driven around but to kind of walk everywhere. But actually what we've also done in ALSPAC is we've looked at the relationship between physical activity and bone as measured by accelerometer, where we put these accelerometers on children, and we've left them to for about up to a week, and then we've looked at the relationship between those results and their bones, and in particular we've looked at the relationship between exercise of different levels of intensity and their bones. And what was interesting is when you, for example, look at the amount of walking and how that relates to the size of bones, we found that it didn't have much of an effect when you take into account more vigorous activity. And it seems that vigorous activity, for example, running and that sort of activity, seems to might have a stronger effect on bones than just sort of simple walking. So I guess in summary, in terms of sort of thinking about a healthy lifestyle for children, if one is going to try and keep weight relatively low, and obviously not to overdo it, but if you're going to sort of try to combat obesity, okay, as well as sort of eating sensibly, the thing to do is to combine that with exercise, but particularly with more vigorous exercise, such as activity associated with sports and so on. So I think it's really, I just think building physical activity, particularly sporting activity, into an adolescent sort of everyday life, I just think is really important in terms of particularly not just for their bones, but I think if you're going to say that you're going to help the bones as well, then I think vigorous physical activity is important, and I think if one does that, one hopefully will sort of offset any potential deleterious effects of reduced fat mass, for example, that might sort of have harmful effects. But so it's just really a matter of I think a sort of a balanced exercise, a balanced sort of healthy lifestyle, combining sort of healthy eating with sort of greater physical activity.